She walked into the bank she owned, only to be told to leave. The security guard smirked, thinking she was just another customer. 3 hours later, his manager was on the phone, begging her not to shut them down. It was a crisp Monday morning when Alicia Morgan, the powerful yet humble CEO of Morgan Financial, decided to make an unannounced visit to one of her bank branches. She often did this to ensure everything ran smoothly and that her employees treated customers with respect. Dressed modestly in a tailored navy suit and wearing her signature hijab, she carried only a sleek leather handbag, blending in with the customers. As she stepped through the polished glass doors, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the quiet hum of counting machines. She walked toward the counter, intending to ask for the branch manager, but before she could get the words out, a uniformed security guard blocked her path. His eyes scanned her from head to toe with thinly veiled suspicion. "Ma'am, this area beyond the lobby is for staff only. If you're not here for a transaction, I'll need you to leave," he said curtly. Alicia calmly explained she was here on important business, but his voice grew sharper, as if he had already decided she didn't belong. Several customers glanced over, sensing tension. Alicia, maintaining her composure, asked politely to speak to someone in charge, but instead of assistance, the guard reached for her elbow, guiding her firmly toward the exit. She didn't resist, she simply allowed herself to be led out into the cool morning air. Her expression never changed, though inside, she felt a mix of disappointment and resolve. Sliding into the driver's seat of her car, she pulled out her phone and spoke in a calm but steady tone. "Call the legal team. We have a situation at the Maple Street branch." She started the engine, already planning her next move. This was no longer just about her, it was about the principal. By the time Alicia arrived at her headquarters, her legal team was already gathered in the conference room, their laptops open and eyes fixed on her. She recounted the incident in precise detail, her voice calm but edged with steel. "They didn't just turn me away," she said. "They humiliated me in my own bank, our bank, without even asking my name." One of her senior attorneys, Daniel Cross, shook his head in disbelief. "We've dealt with discrimination cases before, but for this to happen to you, the owner? That's beyond unacceptable." Alicia nodded, her gaze sharp. "Exactly. If they can treat me like that, imagine how they treat regular customers who don't have power or a platform. This is not going to slide." She ordered the team to review all branch security protocols, interview witnesses from the scene, and examine any surveillance footage from the Maple Street location. Within minutes, the team had a plan in motion. Calls were made, emails fired off, and a firm legal notice was drafted, warning the branch of immediate suspension pending investigation. Alicia's assistant then slid a printed stack of customer complaints across the table, evidence that this wasn't an isolated incident. Alicia scanned them, each story fueling her determination. She knew that public image was everything, but this wasn't about damage control, it was about setting a precedent. As the meeting ended, she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city buzz far below. "We're going to make sure no one, no matter who they are, ever feels like they don't belong in our bank," she said firmly. Daniel met her eyes and replied, "Then we'll start with Maple Street. They'll know by tonight exactly who they put out on the sidewalk this morning." Alicia allowed herself a small smile. Tonight, the tables would turn. At exactly 4:15 p.m., the Maple Street branch's manager, Greg Stanton, was sitting in his office, sipping coffee and reviewing loan reports when his phone rang. It was the regional director, and his tone was icy. "Greg, do you realize who you threw out this morning?" Greg frowned, confused. "Some customer causing a scene, I think. She said something about being a CEO. She wasn't just any CEO," the director cut in. "She owns this bank. Her name is Alicia Monroe." Greg's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Wait, what?" Before he could process it, an email alert popped up on his screen. The subject line read, "Immediate suspension, pending investigation." His stomach sank as he opened it to see the official notice from corporate, citing gross misconduct and discrimination. Out in the lobby, whispers began to spread among the staff as they too received the email. One teller, who had watched the morning incident unfold, muttered to another, "We're done for, she's our boss." The atmosphere shifted from casual routine to sheer panic. Customers noticed the change, curious eyes glancing at employees who now fidgeted nervously behind the counters. Greg rushed out to the floor, trying to regain control, but it was too late. A courier arrived, delivering a sealed legal packet from headquarters. As Greg tore it open, his face turned pale. The branch was being temporarily shut down for a full compliance audit, starting within the hour. He looked around at his staff, their faces pale mirrors of his own, and realized the truth. The woman they had dismissed as just another customer had the power to end all their careers. And from the look of the legal letter in his trembling hands, she was about to do exactly that. At precisely 5:02 p.m., the glass doors of the Maple Street branch swung open, and Alicia Monroe stepped inside, her presence commanding instant silence. She wore a tailored navy suit, her hijab perfectly pinned, and carried a sleek black briefcase that seemed to hum with authority. The same staff who had dismissed her just hours earlier now avoided her eyes, their earlier smugness replaced by visible dread. Without raising her voice, Alicia spoke with calm precision. "I understand this branch has been shut down for an emergency compliance audit," she said, her gaze moving from Greg Stanton to the rest of the staff. Greg stammered something about misunderstanding and bank policy, but Alicia simply opened her briefcase and placed a stack of documents on the counter. "These are the official orders from our legal department. You will cooperate fully. Any failure to comply will result in immediate termination." Her tone was so steady that it carried more weight than a shout. Customers watched from the side, some murmuring in surprise, others quietly recording on their phones. Alicia turned toward them and offered a reassuring smile. "Your accounts are safe. This branch, however, will remain closed until further notice." Then, she looked directly at Greg. "Mr. Stanton, you are relieved of your duties effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Two uniformed guards, who had arrived moments earlier, stepped forward without hesitation. Greg's face flushed red as he gathered his things under the watchful eyes of everyone present. Alicia's calm confidence filled the room. She didn't need to humiliate anyone, her authority spoke for itself. As Greg was let out, Alicia addressed the staff one final time. "Let this be a reminder. Respect isn't optional. Especially here." And with that, she turned and walked toward her waiting car, leaving an unforgettable silence behind her. The next morning, headlines blazed across every major news outlet: Black CEO ousted from her own bank branch, returns with legal team and stunning turnaround. Alicia Monroe sat at her polished oak desk in the bank's corporate headquarters, sipping her coffee as she watched the coverage. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends, colleagues, and even strangers applauding her composure. But Alicia wasn't interested in revenge, she was focused on change. At 9 a.m., she convened an emergency meeting with the bank's board of directors. The room was filled with tension as she laid out her plan: mandatory diversity and sensitivity training for all employees, a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, and a dedicated customer advocacy department to handle grievances. "What happened to me yesterday cannot happen to anyone else ever," she said firmly, her eyes scanning the room. The board members, moved by both her resolve and the public pressure, voted unanimously to approve the changes. By noon, a public statement was released acknowledging the incident and announcing Greg Stanton's termination, along with the sweeping reforms Alicia had proposed. The response was immediate. Messages of support poured in from customers across the country, and new clients opened accounts in record numbers, inspired by the leadership she had shown. Later that evening, Alicia visited the Maple Street branch one last time. The atmosphere was completely different. Staff greeted her with respect, and customers smiled warmly. She paused in the center of the lobby, taking in the quiet hum of business as usual. A little girl in a pink dress tugged at her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Is that the lady from TV?" Alicia smiled at her and bent down to say softly, "Always stand up for yourself, no matter what." As she walked out into the fading sunlight, she knew she had not just won a battle, she had changed the rules of the game. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your friends. Subscribe to Black Stories for more powerful and inspiring stories every week.